So thank you for the opportunity to speak on the budget. So this budget is a very important budget. It's an end-of-term budget, and it's also a transition budget to the next government. So I support the broad strategy used by this government and the previous NDA government to use growth as a primary way to ensure the pressing problems of poverty and despair are addressed and eradicated in the shortest possible time. I strongly support this model of entrepreneurial-led growth and efficiency in our economy. This is at the heart of the how and the why of why we've had growth for the last several years, and this growth is the reason that there is a windfall in terms of government revenues, allowing more spending power by the government. So the growth in the last 5 years has been on the back of significant increased investments, higher infrastructure investment to GDP ratios, higher consumer spending and a robust consumption economy, robust service sector, revived manufacturing and manufacturing exports growth. And in the words of our RBI governor, this growth is showing signs of being self-accelerating. This is on the plus side. So on the minus side, we've had a very weak and increasingly vulnerable agricultural sector and inflation driven by surging prices in primary products and commodities, and the fact that unlike in the past, we are also more exposed to global shocks and global movements in markets and economies. So much has been spoken and written about the budget before this discussion and during it, so I'll focus just on a few areas. This budget, read along with the 11th plan, tells us one thing, that the government and all of us have realized that growth benefits need to trickle down further, and this needs to be done much faster. In the words of Dr. Reddy, the governor of RBI, the 11th plan is creating an economic architecture that seeks to restructure policies to achieve a new vision of a faster, more broad-based and inclusive growth. Sir, I believe, as do many of my colleagues in this House and outside, in this broad objective for us as a nation. So therefore, prima facie, I support the central theme of this budget, that of a budget for the poor, even though I have several concerns about the nitty-gritties of the budget. I support this budget in many things it's attempting to do: the never seen before investments in education capacity building, the trigger to the consumption economy through personal tax exemptions, the significantly increased investment in spending in rural infrastructure, irrigation, skill development, wildlife protection, and climate change, and most importantly, as far as I am concerned, the attempt for the first time to monitor spending outcomes through the Central Plan Scheme Monitoring Scheme. I also agree with the focus on inflation control. Again, to quote Dr. Reddy, the governor of RBI, fighting inflation clearly is a bigger priority than growth, because spiraling prices hammers the poor immediately, while the benefits of economic expansion takes time to trickle down to the poor. So that brings me to the concerns that I have with this budget, sir. So the first concern I have is about the sustainability of this inclusive growth model. For us to achieve this goal of inclusive growth, we need to accept and understand that we need a medium-term plan, and a plan that's aimed at ensuring a sustainable model of inclusive growth and not fits and starts or electioneering. I say this because I see nothing in this budget or speech that points to any part of this being part of a longer-term sustainable strategy. One response to this could be that the budget isn't supposed to do that, and the 11th plan document should do this. So if that is the case, then I would strongly suggest that the House discuss and debate the 11th plan and see if we are in the 11th plan setting the basis for a sustainable inclusive growth agenda. So we all agree that the poor and the impoverished don't remain poor and impoverished through generations because they want to or out of choice, or that they don't try hard enough to break out of the vicious cycle of despair and hopelessness. It's just that they don't have the institutional support that gives them a fair chance to use their skills, hard work, intelligence to change their lives. I strongly urge the Finance Minister and the government to examine the possibility of creation of a long-term sustainable framework, a kind of an infrastructure of opportunity that will address the core issue of empowering and giving opportunity to millions who don't have it today.
No, we have to ration the time.
So the second issue, I believe, is the core of any changed approach to bring about inclusive growth. Inclusive growth outcomes cannot be met in a fast-track approach unless we restructure the way government spends its money. I never tire of reminding ourselves of Rajeev Gandhi's quote of only 15 paise of every rupee reaching the intended people from government programs. The House is already aware and Mr. Shauri today did an eloquent job of describing, the CAG report on the performance of the NREGS program, for example. Sir, I believe if we are to be serious about addressing these problems of poverty and despair, we have to fix this problem of how government spends its money. With the growing economy and the robust revenues as the wind behind the sail of the government, the budget is clearly making very significant allocations for spending on the poor and the disadvantaged. But the same old leaky and inefficient system is being used to deliver these vastly increased spends. So that's a bad strategy, and will no doubt make many middlemen rich, but will severely impair the urgency of our objectives. The budget does talk about setting up of a central plan schemes monitoring scheme, along with a comprehensive decision support system. So this is the best news I've heard in a long time about our efforts to reform and improve government spending efficiency. But I would strongly suggest and urge a deeper restructuring of our 1,000-odd programs aimed at improving this 15 paise per rupee to a more reasonable and respectable 95 paise per rupee. So let's make this money and spending really work and deliver real results to our people. So I would urge the Finance Minister to take cognizance of this. So flowing from what Mr. Sengupta said, let me come to the final issue of the gathering storm clouds of a slowdown. It was clear before the budget that certain parts of our economy were already showing signs of a slowdown. Recent reports have made those fears real. Manufacturing sector has shown a slowdown of almost 25 years year on year. The electricity sector has shown a much steeper slowdown. The weak dollar is causing a tremendous sense of havoc in the manufacturing export sector, including many SMEs. We are also aware that many lakhs of people are employed by this sector. We are also now aware that we are no longer insulated from the global economy swings as we once were. As Mr. Sengupta also said just now, sir, our economy has now a higher component of volatile portfolio flows on the capital account, and the RBI has themselves admitted that there are severe policy challenges in managing these capital flows. I am sure that the Finance Minister is aware of this, and he has said that he will keep an eye on this and take necessary action to ensure that this manufacturing sector does not go sick. I'm only afraid of one thing, and I bring this to his attention, that given the government's general track record of responsiveness, any response should not be late to prevent an irreversible slowdown and all its attendant problems. So before ending, let me congratulate the Finance Minister on two things that have to do with the future: the institutional climate change program and the investment in wildlife protection. People who care about wildlife and the environment are not wildlife fundamentalists, as was regrettably characterized by a senior colleague in this House in an otherwise brilliant speech. So I applaud fully the Finance Minister's step in modernizing and arming our elite forest reserve forces. So in ending, this year is a transition year and a critical year. It's important we don't fall off the growth track and get derailed. I remember very well what happened the last time our Honorable Prime Minister presided over a pre-election budget in the mid-90s. Increased public spending in the face of an economic slowdown caused us to spiral into a 3-year recession. One moment, sir. And it took some time for us to get out of that. This budget, amongst all the previous ones of this government, is the most risky to pull off. The weakening global cues and the sign of an economic slowdown reinforces the view shared by other members that this could turn out to be the highest risk budget with consequences on the current growth strategy and slope. I know that the Finance Minister is a lucky Finance Minister. I think he will have to command all the luck and best wishes he has at his command for this year. I wish him all the best, sir. Thank you.